Okay, we're going to do a little demonstration today on making fire with the hand drill. This is the complete toolkit right here. This is the spindle. It's made from mule fat. We've got saw tool for the fireboard, a leaf to catch our ember, and a tinder pile. And basically that's a complete toolkit. That's all you need. Now, making fire with a fire drill, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it the first time I did it. It's been about almost 30 years. But it took me a number of tries before I was finally successful over several weekends, let my hands heal up. But once I did it, I really felt good about it, and I felt that I had learned a new skill that might come in handy someday. The toolkit is just so simple. That's what I really like about it. And this method was probably used by more cultures around the world than any other technique. Once you learn how to do it, it's kind of like riding a bike. You never forget how, and you'll always be able to make fire as long as you can acquire these tools. These things are pretty much available just about anywhere in the wild. So, you know, if you're stuck out there and you had to find these things, chances are you could find a branch and something to make your fireboard with and actually get a fire going. It might save your life. Okay, so I'm going to do a quickie demo here. We'll go out and we'll acquire these raw materials ourselves, and we'll come back and we'll show you again how to actually utilize the materials that we've gathered. Okay, so I'm using a piece of saw tool from my fireboard, and I think it's about the best material I've found. It's nice and soft, almost as soft as balsa wood, not quite, but it makes an excellent fireboard, and I highly recommend it. Now, you can also use mule fat. This is a piece of cedar. You could use cottonwood, but ideally, the better fireboards are going to be your softer woods, because they'll heat up faster and it'll just be a lot less work. And here's another view of the saw tool stock. You can see I just split that, cut that off of there, made a little board out of it. You want your board about this thickness, no thicker than that, not with a hand drill. That's what the stock looks like, and we'll go out and take a look at a complete plant right now. This is the saw tool plant. The leaves are serrated, very similar to a yucca, and a yucca is equally as good. Both will produce one of these stalks on mature plants just about every year or so, and then the stalk falls off and the plant will produce another stalk the following year. And that's what it looks like. Okay, I'm out here in the desert foothills, and I'm looking for something to make a fire drill with. This material here looks like it should be suitable. I was hoping to find some mule fat like we have in California. It seems to be abundant in the creek beds there. I don't see any of it here, but this material looks like it'd be suitable. just about the right diameter. Yeah, that's a nice drill right there. We'll take that piece. Yeah, this should make a fair drill. We'll straighten that out at home. Okay, here's another piece. This piece here is already dried out and ready to go. Pretty straight too. I can probably make a fire with that one here in another day or two. Just straighten it out a little bit. Seems to be more of the same stuff. This kind of a creek willow, whatever it is. Okay, we've got these things home now. These are the drills that we just got done cutting out in the desert. And you can use just about anything to make a drill with. These branches right here would be suitable. Anything you can find around your yard that's fairly straight should be good. And here's another example on my neighbor's tree here. It looks like that'd make a fine drill right there. And here's another example. This would probably make a fine drill. It's oleander, but easy to carve. Okay, here's our two drills again. This one is dried out already, so we just need to straighten this one out, and we'll use heat to do that. This one here is the green one, and so it's real green and flexible. And the way I like to straighten green sticks like this is just take them with your hand and straighten them out as best you can. Go a little bit beyond what you need, but try and get them just as straight as you can. Okay, so this thing is reasonably straight now. Once you're happy with it, you just stand it up in the corner, maybe in the closet somewhere, any corner in the house, and every day just re-straighten it a little bit, stand it back up on end, and every day it'll dry out a little bit more. Usually takes maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It'll be completely dried out. If you want to speed that process up, you can debark it a little bit. It'll dry out even faster. But after a couple, 3 weeks, it'll be dry and you won't need to use any heat to straighten it out. And you want to make sure you don't lay it flat. It's got to be up on end, because if you lay it flat, it'll warp and you'll just be battling it back and forth. So this technique works really good with arrows, at ladle shafts. I've straightened a lot of things over the years, just green straightening like that until they dry out. Okay, now this is the other shaft, the one that's already dried out. And all we really need to do on this is to straighten it out with heat. But before we do that, we want to just take a knife here and just smooth it out a little bit here. We got a couple little branches to remove. So we'll do that, and we'll straighten it out with heat. Show you how that's done. Okay, so now I've got my burner going, and I just turn the spindle in the fire like this. Heat it up. And this takes a few minutes. You want to do this in several spots wherever the kinks are. Straighten them out. Okay, that shaft is reasonably straight now, and we're going to go ahead and trim it down a little bit more. Okay, so now I just want to remove this bark and kind of narrow the shaft down a little bit. It's a little bit too thick. Okay, here's our completed drill, spindle, and think it'll do the job. It's pretty straight. Straight enough anyway. And here's the one that we made the fire with at the beginning of this video. This is mule fat, and this is whatever that material is that we just cut out there in the creek bed. Very similar. Alright. Here's a few examples of good tinders. This is cottonwood. It's the inner bark, and it's shredded and turned into a bird's nest. The bark looks like this, and then you peel off the inner layers and shred it up into your bird's nest. This is moss. I think that's Spanish moss. That works well also. Just about out of this. This is yucca. It's just a yucca leaf, and you just dry this stuff out. It makes good cordage, of course, but you can also use that for your tinder bundle or part of it. Works pretty well. You can use dried grasses. Just about anything that's good and dry. It must be very, very dry. Will work well. And here's another good example. This is a fan palm. I got a bunch of these around the backyard here, so just looking around for tinders and I saw this stuff. I'm sure it'll work really well. Just peel some of that material out of there. And we'll probably give this a try in our next demo here. See how it works. Certainly looks like good tinder. Rained a little bit here last night, so probably need to set this in the sun, let it dry out a little bit. Okay, it's important to take your tinder and turn it into a bird's nest. Shred it up really good so you get lots of air in there, and you want it to be somewhat fluffy, but not too fluffy. Kind of shred it up real good, get lots of oxygen in there so it'll take and you'll actually catch a good flame. This is that palm tinder that we just took off the tree. And what I like to do, it's just my own little thing here. You can take these little fibers and put them in there, but take little strips of yucca and just get a bunch of these little strips here like this and add that to the very center of your tinder bundle, and it will really help it catch, because these things take the ember almost immediately and they'll transfer it throughout your tinder bundle. Okay, I went ahead and made 3 bird's nest or tinder bundles. This one's the cottonwood. It's got a few little yucca strips in there, yucca stalk strips. This one here is the Mexican fan palm, the bark or the material underneath the leaf. This one here is yucca leaf. It's got a little bit of moss in there. Okay, I'd like to share a little trick that I've been doing for years now that can help you to keep your ember going. It's nothing more frustrating than to finally get that ember going after all that work. You put it in your bird's nest, you blow on it or you wave it in the air, and lo and behold, the thing goes out and you don't have fire. Now you've got to go to all that work again with your fire drill in order to create that ember in the first place. So what you can do is just take that ember and transfer it onto a piece of yucca or sotul stalk. You want to just take sotul stalk or the yucca stalk like this and cut a thin little slice out of it, similar to this, and you transfer your ember, or you just touch the end of this little wick or fuse onto your ember like that. This will start glowing, and that coal will slowly burn from one end all the way to the other. It can last 10-15 minutes or more depending on how long your wick is. So in the event that you lose your ember, you simply take your little fuse here, place it in the ember and blow on it, or in the bird's nest, and get your fire going. This one's a little wider than I like, so we can split it down. Just take your knife, start at one end, slowly work your way back. Okay, just a couple of comments about the spindle. You want your spindle to be sized just right. If it's too thick, like this one right here, when you spin that between your hands, you're not going to get the same RPMs that you would with a narrower spindle. And as a result, the velocity here that this thing is turning in the hole is not going to be as high. It's not going to generate as much friction, and you're going to have a lot harder time trying to get an ember going. Now on the other hand, if your spindle is too thin, and this is almost too thin for me, this is the one we made the fire with at the beginning of the video, it's too thin up here in the upper end, what will happen is your hands will rub together and you'll be creating a lot of friction on your hands, so you're more likely to get blistered, and also you're wasting energy. You want all of your energy to go into turning the spindle, not creating heat on your hands. I like to position my spindle so the narrow end is up on the top and the thicker end is down on the bottom. What that does is you get more revolutions per minute because you're rubbing a thinner portion of the stick, and you get greater velocity since this thing is turning and producing more speed at the bottom where it counts. Now if the end of your spindle gets too polished and too hard, you need to scuff it up a little bit so you can generate some more heat. Otherwise what will happen is it'll just drill right down through the board and it won't create enough heat in order to get an ember going. So you just take a plain old rock here. This one really wasn't too bad, but just scuff it up a little bit. That'll create a little bit more heat for you. A couple of comments about the fireboard. You want to position your hole reasonably close to the edge. This one here is a little bit too far in, and what happens is that notch can fill up with punk, and it won't get enough oxygen in there in order to get your ember going. Also, you want to make sure your notch is wide enough. If it's too narrow, especially if your hole is further in like this one is, it'll choke up like that, and you just won't get the ember to get going. Here's a few examples of pretty good notches. Okay, we'll go ahead and create a new hole right about there. We take our knife, just swing it around in an arc like that. Just to seat the end of our spindle in there. Okay, that's good enough to start our spindle. We'll go ahead and put our spindle in there and get a hole started, then we can put the notch in there. Okay, here's our spindle, the one we just got out in the desert, and it's already dried out. We straightened it with the heat. We're going to go ahead and season the tip of that. We're also going to start a new hole at the same time. So we've got our little hole that we start with the knife. Just start off nice and slow here. All we're trying to do is get a hole started. Then we'll cut our notch. All right. Now we'll go ahead and we'll cut a notch. It's a little further in than I want it, but it's okay. Okay, we'll put our notch right about like that. And that's the area that we want to cut out with our knife. Do this on the top and the bottom, and then take out the middle as well. That's about good enough. All right, let's give it a try.